In Philippians chapter 4 and verse 10, we wouldn't necessarily think of this text of Scripture as being a Scripture about revival, but the Apostle Paul uses the word revival right here. So I think that it's important that we use this as we begin to look at, what is the need for revival. And so what he says right here in Philippians 4 and verse 10, he says, "But I rejoice in the Lord greatly that now at least you have revived your concern for me." You revived your concern for me. Now we don't think of that as being a spiritual revival, but they revived their concern for me. But when we look at that word that the Apostle Paul used, that you've revived your concern for me, the King James translation, I believe, translates it much better, actually, as it says your concern for me has flourished. And so using that word flourished. And so when we begin to think about revival and the need for revival, we need to think about our concern flourishing, our concern, not just for Paul, as the church of Corinth's concern for Paul was revived or it flourished, but our concern for all spiritual matters, for our concern for every Christian, for our concern for lost people, for our concern over the spiritual condition of the church, for our concern of the spiritual condition of the land that we live in. It needs to be revived, and that we need to be as Jesus was, that had compassion for the people. And so that concern within our hearts needs to be revived. It needs to be flourished. Now that word flourished is kind of like a plant that is being talked about here, that it grows and it blossoms and it blooms and it just begins to branch out. It is flourishing. And so revival does that to us. And so if we don't have concern within our heart over our spiritual condition, over our church's spiritual condition, over our community's spiritual condition, and over lost people, we need to be revived. And so that concern within us needs to flourish. So would you join with me in prayer and saying, God, would you revive concern within my heart? Maybe I'm not concerned, haven't been concerned over spiritual conditions, maybe mine, not really concerned about anybody else's though. You need revival. You need it. That's a need within your life. So would you pray that? God, would you revive that concern within my heart?